Solitude in Pennsylvania, Mysterious Inheritance. Harry and Emily decided to spend the weekend in an old house that Harry inherited from his grandfather in a small town called Chestnut Hill in Pennsylvania. This house was a stone witness to the passage of time, its walls holding numerous stories and secrets. Harry hadn't been there in a long time, as he had been constantly busy lately. Whether it was his studies or work, they never allowed him the time for a proper getaway in the countryside. So when the opportunity presented itself, Harry and Emily decided to come here, to his grandfather's old house, especially because childhood memories of Harry spending his school summer vacations here had been haunting him lately. Here they hoped to be alone and enjoy each other's company in a cozy, peaceful setting, far away from the hustle and bustle of city life. When they arrived in Chestnut Hill, they saw picturesque streets adorned with red maples and the locals who seemed friendly and hospitable. Harry's house stood on the outskirts of town, surrounded by dense woods. An ancient bridge over a small river disappeared into the distant darkness, adding to the place's mystery. On their first evening, they decided to spend time on the porch, as the evenings were still warm. When it got colder, they planned to move inside by the fireplace and continue savoring the exquisite wine from Harry's grandfather's collection. The weather was still summery, even though autumn had officially arrived. Time passed, unnoticed. The young couple enjoyed the pleasant warm evening, splendid wine, and conversation. Emily sat beside Harry, resting her head on his shoulder. He tenderly embraced her, sipping the excellent wine from his grandfather's cellar. The wine was truly magnificent. Harry had stumbled upon it by accident when he went down to look for light bulbs to replace the burnt-out ones. Finding it felt like hitting the jackpot. They couldn't read the wine label as the labels had mostly deteriorated, but it was clear that the wine was very old, authentic, and probably very valuable by today's standards. Harry began to consider the idea of using this discovery to improve their financial situation, which had been shaky since he took out a loan for a new car and paid a deposit for their future cozy nest. He was momentarily distracted from his cheerful mood and philosophical thoughts about a successful financial investment when the weather suddenly took a turn for the worse. A sudden gust of wind seemed to come out of nowhere and nearly shattered all the open windows on the first floor. The two friends jumped up and rushed inside, not forgetting to take their glasses and the half-empty wine bottle with them. They hurried to close the remaining windows that miraculously survived the onslaught of the wind. Suddenly, a blood-curdling cry echoed from the upper floors. It wasn't just a cry, but more of a howl or scream. Harry and Emily froze in their tracks, paralyzed by fear. Emily dropped the glass she had been holding, despite the need to close the windows. Cold sweat broke out on Harry's forehead, and he sobered up instantly, as if he hadn't been tipsy just a moment ago. There was no trace of the alcohol haze. Right after the chilling scream, silence descended, only disturbed by the wind howling outside. The two stood there as if rooted to the spot, afraid to move. Harry's first thought was to get out of this once familiar, now terrifying house as soon as possible. But the car keys were in the bedroom on the second floor, and they had to go upstairs to retrieve them. To go up there, where someone had just screamed in sheer terror. The situation was further aggravated by the fact that both of their cell phones were in the bedroom as well. Emily insisted on leaving them there, switched off, as they both yearned for peace and quiet. But whatever had just been screaming upstairs didn't seem to know about their desire for rest. The situation was very ambiguous and contradictory. The couple faced a dilemma. Should they go upstairs for the car keys, risking their lives, or stay downstairs, lock themselves in the room and wait for morning? There was an option to escape from the house and run to the nearest neighbors to call the police. However, the raging wind outside and the heavy rain that followed the hurricane-like gusts made even this option less successful and less obvious. Trying not to make any noise, Harry signaled Emily to follow him. The couple tiptoed into the adjacent room next to the living room. Beside the fireplace, Harry noticed a poker and a pair of tongs for coal, and he decided to take them with him. Heavy metal objects could be handy in this situation. As soon as they entered the room and closed the door quickly, a loud crash from upstairs echoed, sounding like something heavy and solid had fallen from a great height. It was as if a massive wardrobe had crashed. A few seconds later, the sound of running feet and manic laughter followed, turning into something resembling the neighing of a horse. Emily screamed in fear and rushed to Harry, seeking protection. Harry instinctively, though he didn't understand it himself, hooted her, even though he was trembling with fear, and shivered as if from the cold. Trying to calm her down, he began to say something, but it came out very awkwardly. He started stuttering, which only made the situation worse. After a while, he managed to calm down. Emily felt better, but she still couldn't stop sobbing and wiping away tears. They needed to do something. Without much thought, Harry pushed the old leather armchair by the wall against the door. Now, breaking through the sturdy wooden door wouldn't be easy. He poured the remains of the wine into a glass and downed it in one go. Whatever happens, he thought, he shouldn't waste good wine. Then he remembered that he hadn't locked the car, and therefore access to the car interior was wide open. In the trunk, he always kept his survival kit just in case, and if he could reach it, the chances of success for that entity that had ruined their evening would decrease dramatically. In that kit, there was a 15-round Beretta pistol. He had secretly kept the pistol in his car, as Emily had always been against firearms. Waiting until the rain and wind outside calmed down a bit, Harry carefully, without making any noise, opened the window, checked outside, and jumped out. Running a few dozen steps back to the car, he quickly opened the trunk and grabbed his backpack and a large water container. Then he ran back to the window. On the way back, he almost slipped in a large puddle, but managed to keep his balance. Passing his load to Emily, who was waiting by the window, he then jumped back inside. His heart was racing from excitement, but he felt like a hero, especially when he saw the sparks of admiration in Emily's eyes. To his surprise, Emily reacted very positively to the sight of the Beretta in his hands, even though he had expected a different reaction. In short, life was starting to get back on track. Time was passing quickly, and only a few hours remained until dawn. With water and a weapon in a locked room, waiting for sunrise seemed quite achievable. As time passed, fatigue began to catch up with him, but the sense of danger didn't leave him. He suggested to Emily that they take turns napping and he would stand guard for a couple of hours. Then they would switch and he could rest. He didn't want to leave without figuring out what had happened to them. He didn't want to appear as a coward in front of Emily, and he had plans for their home.